Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Robo-Celestial here, and welcome to 13 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat, and so we begin. That same dream again. But this time Midoriya was conscious even while dreaming, he was fully aware of the fact he was dreaming, and he knew this particular dream all too well. There he was back in the USJ, the intense void eyes of the Nomu bearing down on him, piercing straight through his. Even with his visual proficiency from his quirk, Midoriya was helpless in front of this beast, slowly draining his sanity and life. All the while, Nomu seemed to grow larger and occupy his field of view with great intensity. He was going to be swallowed by the magnitude of the beast, he was dreaming, but Midoriya thought he was going to die. Just as he'd given up all hope, bright lights permeated the dream, destroying the horrific scene with luminescent lights of different colors swirling all around. This was different from what he normally experienced, usually the dream ended with him waking up terrified and gasping for air, but now the focus had shifted and left him in a space swirling with colorful lights and a male standing in front of him. Scruffy white long locks of hair swayed across his face, the male possessed a frail body with a pale complexion, he wore a simple white top and black pants. It got Midoriya wondering whether he was still actually in a dream, because the male seemed to have sentience all by himself, unlike something his mind would have conjured. It seems you've been having a rough time, hun, ain't? From the beginning you received this power. I've been trying to reach out to you just like I've done in the past, but with that quirk of yours it's hard to find any openings into your mind even from within, so, the male explained, most of which Midoriya didn't understand, but the scruffy male's words were cut short momentarily as the dream space began to distort and disappear for a second. The green-haired boy wondered what was going on, he tried to talk, to ask a question, but words failed him, he couldn't muster anything from his mouth. It seems my time here is almost up as quickly as I arrived, but I'll leave you with a clue to help you use one for all with your quirk, hopefully you will understand. What do you do when a vessel that is already full needs to accept more? You simply have to, just like that the vision was disrupted, and Izuku startled awake by the thundering of the skies outside his window as rain poured from the gray heavens. He sat up in bed wondering to himself what had just happened, it felt too real to be a dream and that man he knew about one for all and was about to tell him something important. Why did it have to be that moment the vision faded? What to do when a vessel is full but needs to accept more? Izuku said to himself, pondering on what the man was about to say. What did he have to do? In fact, why did he have this dream now? He shook his head almost as if to chase the thoughts away. For one, he was happy to wake up without screaming in terror of having that dream, but a wave of sadness suddenly washed over him as he looked at the black suit hung on his dresser. Today he had to attend a funeral. The entire class of 1A and teachers of UA High gathered round as a casket was slowly lowered deep into the earth. On the memorial stand that was beaten mercilessly by the rain was the picture of Lida Tenya, the former representative of the class. He looked so happy and full of life, unlike how he was in days preceding his death, sheltered from the rain under umbrellas. The teachers paid their homage to the lad in silence, while some of the class let out their own floodgate of waters. Lida didn't deserve a death like this, he had just begun to actualize his dreams, and it had been cut short so abruptly. Thoughts like that ran through Midoriya's mind as he gloomily watched the casket being lowered. Lida's family mourned under a big umbrella, his brother Tensei sat in a wheelchair connected to an IV bag. He was not fit enough to leave the hospital, but he wouldn't miss the funeral for anything. Unlike the rest, he sat in silence just gazing off into the distance. Bakugo looked worse off. He tried to put up a strong forte, rock solid and unwavering, but he could see his friend's seething rage fighting to materialize, and he just barely kept it all in. Looking to his left, he saw his idol All Might in his muscular form, dressed in a tight black suit. The smile he always knew and loved was gone, and in its place was a sad remorse expression. Midoriya just remembered he'd planned to discuss his dream with All Might. It might not have been the best of times, but he had to tell him now before All Might's time limit in that form was up and he left. Silently the boy walked up to the number one hero and told him the dream he had the other night. Midoriya, I can't digress into much detail here, but I believe you had an encounter with a previous holder of this power, and if your description serves well, it may have been the very first. What to do when a vessel is full but needs to accept more? All Might spoke and pondered after taking Midoriya to a secluded area to talk. I think it's a no-brainer that he's referring to you already having a quirk, young Midoriya. You probably have a problem controlling one for all because your tank is full and cracking from the strain. A logical solution would be to pass on the contents of the vessel, All Might said, muttering the last part to himself while rubbing his chin in thought. I have to pass on one for all? But I just got it. Midoriya said hysterically, frightened at the prospect of losing a power he'd just gotten. Oh no, of course not, but if you as the vessel were dynamic, rapidly changing and improving yourself and your original quirk, thus expanding your width as the vessel and bringing yourself up to speed with the immense power of one for all, thus accommodating it. All Might reasoned, drawing and accurate and precise analysis of what the first could have meant, all under low tones that were hushed more by the pit-pattering of rain on their umbrellas. Oh, I see now, I need to grow myself and my quirk to accommodate the changes, Midoriya concurred, nodding his head. But be careful, expand too much and you might rip yourself apart, grow too slow and you'll never meet up, you have to do it just right, and most importantly you need to surpass your fear, that's the first step to making this power yours, All Might concluded. Midoriya knew what he meant. The incident at the USJ, that was his trauma to overcome. Suddenly the number one hero began to cough, steam rippling from his form, he was at his limit, and with just a nod from him Midoriya knew his idol had to go. And right on cue something happened just as the symbol of peace left. Out from surrounding bushes a male ran. He wore a red scar tied around his head and carried a long katana, yelling at the top of his lungs as he charged towards Tenya's mother. I'll do it. I'll complete the goal of the hero killer. He yelled maniacally as he brandished his sword at the helpless lady. Everyone was taken aback and shock. The pros more suited to deal with situations such as this had already begun to move in response, but someone beat them to it. With a loud explosion, Bakugo intercepted the fanatic, palms open and radically bubbling with explosions. He sent a blast straight at the man, sending him right to the floor with Bakugo right on top of him. A sigh of relief washed over everyone. Recently many people who agreed with Stain's beliefs had gone out of their way to carry out their own justice just like this man. There was a problem. Even though Bakugo had restrained the man, he didn't let up, raining explosion after explosion onto his face, lost in rage, all that pent-up anger manifesting itself. Stop Kaken, you're hurting him, you've caught him already, that's enough. Midoriya said to his friend after rushing to his side, completely forgetting his umbrella, leaving him soaked. Why the hell should I? They've hurt us way more, they need to feel the pain as well. Bakugo said without even looking at Midoriya. Even under the rain he could see Bakugo was crying. The pros had begun to rapidly zero in on them, knowing the threat to be stopped now was their student. This was bad, and Midoriya knew it. He understood Bakugo's pain, but also knew his friend was becoming something else. He had to do something, he had to stop Bakugo before it escalated any further. With his own mixed emotions, unconsciously Midoriya's eyes lit a crimson red with a ring and a magatama hanging in it. His eyes seemed to glow brighter as he focused on making his friend stop. Bakugo, stop. Midoriya yelled, grabbing his friend by the shirt and glaring him in the eyes. Midoriya felt something different, even though he didn't know what was going on. It felt as if he had delved into Bakugo's consciousness and flipped a switch off. True to Midoriya's feelings, the feisty boy looked shocked, then slumped to the ground unconscious. He wasn't sure what had just happened, since when did he learn to do that? The heroes rushed in, taking Bakugo and the male away. Luckily another possible crisis had been averted. But there wasn't the slightest let-up in the problems today, and right now a bigger one was happening. A dark rip in space appeared just a bit off left of where the funeral was held. A very sinister voice rang loud and clear from it. So it appears he didn't get to cross all his I's and dot his T's last time. It was a hassle, but I managed to bust him out before he went in to have a go at it one more time and balance his checks, fair right? Midoriya knew that voice. Shigaraki. But he didn't come out of the portal. Stain did. The hero killer was back. With great celerity he swiped Tensei out of his wheelchair and began to take off at top speed with him. Don't think I'll just leave you that present, it wouldn't be fair with all of you on Stain, so here's a little something. Shigaraki continued from the closing portal. Right on cue, huge explosions could be heard going off in multiple directions and screams followed. The sequel begins, Shigaraki said just as the portal vanished. Deku was livid. Not only had Lita died, but now Stain wanted to take his brother away too. He sure as hell wouldn't let it. His crimson eyes glowered with intensity as if expressing his rage. I'm gonna get Tensei back. He growled in rage. I'll go with you. We'll take Stain down for Lita, a familiar voice said with a hand placed on Midoriya's shoulder.